Do not adjust your TV screen. Yes, it is Wednesday, and it's 10:30. And usually by now, we would hear realness giving us an intro or trying to catch us off guard with the red light. And I think I got him, but he just wants to show off some belts because guess what? This is a special episode of Championship Culture. And in this episode, if you couldn't tell from the thumbnail, it's the it's the Intercontinental Championship, right? Versus the United States Championship. It has been referenced as the workhorse belt, but the United States has always been a red, white, and blue standard, with deep roots that go all the way back to the National Wrestling Alliance. But today, we got to settle this debate once and for all. Which one is the superior?
No. Tell the people what this really is, brother guy. This is going to be a war, an absolute drag out fight debate. You had your paper and you're reading all the words and you're being all proper and giving proper instructions, but this has officially been deemed a realness takeover because I am quite fired up about this conversation and I've completely interrupted the standards of this show. So, brother guy, on top of your professional intro, please do us the honors and let's get this show on the road because tonight we got to get down to the bottom of this.
So let me ask you, are you ready?
That's always the $1 million question. Are you ready?
Let's get to it. For one night and one night only, you got the shorter intro because we got to get to this topic. And like I would say on Tuesday, welcome to Season 4 of Championship Culture. I'm Brandon the Guy, and remember, every belt has a story. Now today is a special realness takeover. And without any further ado, the man who needs no intro, the man who is going to sit here and debate me probably for the next 2 hours and 51 minutes, in reference to why he feels that a certain belt is the more superior mid-card belt. Why he feels that he can prove to me why one belt is more important than the other. Why one belt is more prestigious. Why one belt lineage means more. All of this and more because guess who I'm with? I'm with the owner, the operator, the CEO, the founder of TRDA Brands, or as we like to call him, the Real Dwayne Allen. Hello, sir.
Good evening, people. Anyways, how did you like I just completely disrupted your whole professional intro. You sat there and you tried to go through this whole list like, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to discuss. I said, I was waiting for my time. I said, wait till he's halfway through. But yes, thank you for having me here today. This is my first realness takeover of season 4. And of course, with Brother Hugh not available on a yacht somewhere still. Who else would you call to have this conversation with? Because we have to get to the bottom of a conversation that we constantly have over and over and over and over and over. And then we stop. And then we have the conversation over and over and over and over. Then we stop. And we have the conversation over and over and over again. But this is the perfect platform to finally get down to the bottom of it. Now, I don't know how this is going to go, brother guy. You are surrounded by championship belts. So that means your brain is tapped into an unofficial power that I don't have access to right now. But I will do my best to entertain the fans and try to have a little bit of a educational conversation while we figure out what exactly are we arguing here? What exactly are we comparing? We're talking lineage versus legacy. We're talking about the power of one title versus the power of another. I'm trying to make this sound like an epic showdown that would rival an episode of Dragon Ball Z, and not one of the cliffhanger episodes. I'm talking about one of the good ones. So that's why we're here today.
And this is why in season 1 we had Wing Eagle versus Wing Eagle with the founder of the wrestling realm, Hollywood, Brian H. Porter. And that was a interesting conversation. Then we had Big Gold versus the World, right? Mm-hmm. But it's only fitting because we've done why the Intercontinental title is so important. We've done why the bloodline, it runs through the bloodline. We've done all about the United States title, right? And I think that it's time to really decide, and it's really time to debate and say, here's why one is more important than the other. Here's why one when you look back at it, has had more of an impact, more of the legacy been built, and I know legacy continues to grow. But, the first thing I want to talk about is the history. Now, a lot of people understand the history that they both started in 1975, correct? But one was January.
I don't know. I thought the IC title was debuted in 1979. Am I wrong?
Is it 79 or 75? I thought it was 75. I thought it was 79. I'm sorry.
United States 75. Yep.
75 and 79. The United States was 79 in January, and was September of 1979. So 4 years apart from when they started. But just because you're the first don't mean that you're the best, right?
True.
But when the United States title was introduced, it was introduced into a company called NWA. And just to take people back a little bit, I'm not going to dive on the history too much because I want you to go out and see some of these things. But back in the territory days, you might not see your world champion every show, but you had other champions that you would see that were kind of like the champions of that territory. And the United States title was one of those because it was first started off as the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship. Then it moved to the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, but it was the undisputed version because it was combined with another United States title. Then it was known as the WCW United States. And then for a brief period, unofficially, the WCW Canadian Heavyweight Championship. Thank you, Lance Storm. Yes, then it went back. Then it went back to just the WCW United States. And now here we are with the current iteration of the WWE United States Championship. So yes, a belt with multiple names. It has some lineage, but the history is it started in one company, went through WCW, and found its home now in WWE. And Brother Realness.
Yes, sir.
Tell the people a little bit about the Intercontinental title. Because this is going to be the basis of, before we get to the rounds that we're going to get to. Because it's going to be 4 rounds a day, but we got to just give them a little bit of history about this. There you go.
A little nice little evil laugh over the intense battle music. The Intercontinental Championship. We're talking about a title that was pioneered and introduced by the one, the only, the late and the great Pat Patterson. A well-traveled championship made its way into the World Wrestling Federation, igniting a lineage full of superstars that would make a name for themselves, often being the ones next in line for the World Heavyweight Championship in said federation. That brings us to the importance of why it was necessary. If you could hang on the level of the Intercontinental Championship, you could find yourself maybe one day next in line for a title shot and becoming the face of that federation. Now, the Intercontinental Championship has had many iterations over the years. It has had many looks. It has held many standards. It has been on many a pay-per-view, PLE platform, etc. And it still holds its ground to this day. Now, if you ask me, the Intercontinental Championship has always, maybe not always, but for the most part, held its ground as that standard bearer, as the workhorse title. Now, that championship had a slump at some point, and at one point, it actually went away. Now, with that being said, the Intercontinental Championship reignited its history and lineage and was brought back during an era where the WWE was trying to figure out its personality post-Attitude Era, post-Monday Night Wars. And that brings us to today. How do we finally break down the importance of this particular championship and its lineage and legacy and how it compares to the history of the United States Championship? Huh? How's that, brother guy? You like how it did that? Added the intense battle music. It only seemed fitting.
Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, I'm gonna say I think they got a little bit of history. I mean, we know where it came from, we know where it went through, and I'm gonna give you some tidbits as we go along. But are you ready to move on to round 1? Are you ready?
Yeah, but you got to do it like Mortal Kombat. Round 1.
I was waiting. Look, here we go. So now, round 1, Realness. This round will be all about the look / presentation. How did the belt look? How did it make you feel? You can talk about every iteration of the belt, or you can home in on your favorite iteration. You can home in on the fact as to why this one distinct design caught your eye, everything about it. We can break it down, right?
Mhm.
And since you had some epic music, I'm gonna go first with the United States Championship, right?
Oh, come on.
And
Time out. This is how we can't do this. This is
okay,
you're starting this off and you're cheating. You just can't say the United States Championship. You have got to talk about what iteration, what version of it is, because you have 1,000 belts behind you, right? And you have multiple. No, I don't have it with me. I do have a version of the United States Championship, but it's a very classic NWA National Wrestling Alliance. It's got a lot of what's his name? I can't forget his name. It doesn't matter. It's still the United States Championship from the 80s.
it's got a lot of Lex Luger on them, but okay,
you have got to be quite specific about what particular United States Championship you are referring to and what year.
All right, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take you way back.
Oh no, come
to
on.
a time.
No.
I'm gonna take you back to a time because not a lot of people know this. The NWA had its first iteration of the United States Championship, and it was unified to another belt that we more commonly see. But the first champion being the Legend of Harley Race, right? Mm-hmm. This version stood up as in a different style belt because now North America is big in front and center, Eagles, and it was just literally a belt that just looked the same. But guess what I'm going to talk about? I'm going to take a look at the version that most of us really remember. And that's one of our favorites with his hair, right? Stunning Steve Austin, right? This version of the championship is by far probably the superior version of said championship. And when you think about it, the thing that makes it so superior, why it was a superior mid-card belt, right? Think back to the time when it made it to WCW. Correct. We had the big gold at the time, right? Mm-hmm. And the big gold was a 3-plate belt, right? Mm-hmm. Main plate, 2 side plates. So when the United States title was introduced with this look, yes, it had the eagle front and center. It had 3 plates, the banner to say exactly what it was. And literally, it screamed at you, I'm an important champion. I'm the mid-card champion, but I'm also the secondary champion because as we've seen with this belt design, it just made that person look so much more important, especially when it's being held like this with a current champion. Now, that is a 5-plate design, but look how important that looks in his hand. Does that not look like it's screaming a championship? Does that not look like he can open or close a show, or he can be on some television screen doing a Good Morning America or anything like that because he has that distinct belt in his hand?
Now, look, I'm not going to be one to be completely biased. It's this whole conversation, and I got to preface myself. We're going to be here for 6 hours.
Uh-huh.
Yes. This particular championship, I'm not stuck on one versus the other. Don't get me wrong. Now, that particular version of the WCW United States Championship is one of the most beautiful belts ever created in the industry, or none, right? And dare I say, if it was a tad bit bigger, it could definitely pass for a world champion, a world championship title. So here's my thing. I love that championship. Now, I grew up mostly on the 3-plate, the 3-plate version that you just showed. But of course, that 5-plate version also was the one where it kind of, I don't want to say reignited its history and its legacy in WCW. But I got a major problem with that particular championship during that particular time. Now, brother guy, please ask me why. Like, brother, there it is. Look at that thing.
So the only difference in the 5-plate was now they put the flags on the side. Sometimes less is more. And I always thought the 3-plate was much more impactful as it comes to it, because with you already got the flag front and center on a representation of the flag front and center. You don't need to add that onto the side because it took away from the prestige look of it. It took away because now if I'm holding the belt, do I have a 3-plate or do I have a 5-plate? So that's why I always prefer the 3-plate more than the 5-plate, because the 3-plate felt so much more important. But realness, why would you have an issue with this design?
It's because look who the heck is holding this championship in this picture. Please pull the picture back up, brother guy. That is Stunning Steve Austin. And now, if we're in the business of explaining the importance of Midcard championships. That's exactly why I played that when I discussed the Intercontinental one in the first place. But what came from this? What came from stunning Steve Austin holding this particular championship? Let me tell you, absolutely nothing.
Or did it?
Nothing.
Nothing came from it? Will we have Stone Cold? Will we have
explain to you? Not because of the United States Championship.
Okay, continue.
Think about it. Stone Cold Steve Austin went to ECW. Pay attention, folks. Here comes your history lesson. That's how you know you're on the freaking phone with the realness, because I know this stuff. Stone Cold Steve Austin went to ECW and he cut an emphatic promo talking about all the ideas that he had in WCW. During this time period, you can almost make the claim that this was just a carryover championship. I'm talking about just something to give one of the guys that really worked well in the ring. It didn't have any prestige to it and almost didn't mean anything, because Stone Cold Steve Austin, like I said, he went to ECW, and what did he talk about? One of his famous promos is the conversation he had with the late, the great Dusty Rhodes. And he talks about all these ideas that he has working with Sting and all these people, and they decided, nah, baby, we're going to keep you right where you at. That's just what it is. Like, that is just what Stone Cold Steve Austin made one of the most in-person, impactful impersonations of Dusty Rhodes that we've always had, because we often use that same quote on the show.
No, baby, that's for somebody else. We're just going to keep you right where you're at right now.
Steve Austin, or stunning Steve Austin at the time, explaining to the world why even him holding that United States Championship, it didn't mean a thing. It was something that they rewarded to him because of how well he worked in the ring, but this championship did not even show signs of him leading to a better position or main event position in the company. So there you have it. As beautiful as that championship was, it did not hold any prestige, and it was not a symbol of, hey, this person might be next in line. It was just the top championship for somebody that was at a certain level, and that certain level wasn't always a guarantee that you'll move up into the main event scene.
So who did he defeat for this belt?
I don't even know. That's how bad the run was. That's even worse.
So I want you to follow the bouncing ball, right?
Here we go.
Dusty Rhodes, Steve Austin. Steve Austin was defeated by who in a 203 Falls match? Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, right?
Okay.
Ricky the Dragon got hurt. They had to give it back to Steve. Because who else at the time? Because think about WCW in 1993. Sting, Vader, and Flair were all...
Let's let the world know. These children don't know their history.
Yeah, so in the world title scene was Sting, Vader, and Flair, right? Those were your top contenders, and those were the ones holding the belts. So who did you have that could hold that mid-card title, that could open, be the mid-card, or even close the show if your champion was not available? So, of course, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was in that mix, but because of an injury, it had to go back to him. Because Dusty Rhodes was a proven worker in the ring, hence why he had it. Stone Cold was the up-and-comer to say, okay, we can trust you. And then guess what? As soon as somebody got hurt, put it back on the guy that he just lost it from. So that's why I say that this was important for that specific time, but the look of that championship, and that's why that was more important, because as you notice, well, I'll wait till we get to another round to explain that, because I don't want to show too much of my hands, but realness. This championship served its purpose of, we always talk about the workhorse title, we always talk about that, right? But the look of this added something else to it. It added something to that wrestler. It made you feel like, okay, why do I need to cut on the TV and look at him? Why am I watching this guy? What makes him so important with that championship? And that's why this version will be more iconic than any other version.
That's not true. That's not true. I disagree with you, brother guy. Let me tell you why. Because when you talk about it made somebody look important, right? Okay, you can look important, but did it make him important, right? If you look at the counterpart of the United States Championship, the contemporary that we are arguing about today, which is the Intercontinental Championship, especially during that time, did one serve one purpose versus the other? Now, they're supposed to be on the same level, but if you ask me, on one hand, one championship was doing a little bit more that was active, something that was actually pushing the conversation forward, pushing the talent forward, pushing the idea that, hey, this person might be up next versus the United States. And your argument says it made him look important just because of the belt. So now I'm going to put you in a hot seat, brother guy.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
My question to you is, for this era, that particular United States Championship at that particular time period, what was more important, the championship or how it looked?
So because WCW was in a state of really making sure that they were the other wrestling company, it was more about the look. How could I capture the eyes at that moment? You could have the best wrestling over in WWF, right? But how do I capture people and get them over here? Because remember, they were all about the flashes, trying to get eyes on their product. And when you have Vader, and I'm going to just keep saying Sting and Flair in the main title, you needed something else to keep people entertained. You needed something else to make them say, okay, I'm going to watch them. Hence why the cruiserweights were birthed. Hence why we had all the other stuff going in WCW, because it was about the capturing the audience. It wasn't about the who's up next at this moment. It was about the how do I keep people entertained and how do I capture their attention.
Okay, I'm not letting you off the hook. So who did a better job at that time? You talking about 1993. Now, don't get me wrong. The business wasn't in the greatest place as it is. You know what I mean? We were dealing with some steroid allegations. We were dealing with a rebuild as far as the World Wrestling Federation. So it's not like the industry was, even if WWF was number one, that wasn't saying too much for 1993. So if you think about who was up and coming in 1993 as far as Intercontinental Champion versus the look of the United States Champion, which you are continuing to push, who did their job better? Did the WCW United States 5-plate championship belt do a better job of making Stunning Steve Austin look like a major star, or did the WWF Intercontinental Championship look better because of the workhorse who was holding that championship and made it important? All right, at the same time, let's just say 1993,
which would be Razor Ramon, or he made it cool.
Take your pick.
I get it. I get it. Razor Ramon made it cool because it was Razor Ramon. He made it look cool. If you don't have Razor Ramon in that year, Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon made each other. Let's call it what it is.
So you're saying, so who held that belt before Razor Ramon? Say that. Don't even give
Shawn Michaels.
Okay, right. And who held it before him?
Marty Jannetty.
Okay, he doesn't count. Who held it before Marty Jannetty? Like,
it was
not even a complete timeline, but just who held the championship.
Say it. No, who held it before him?
What difference did it make? It was the pink and black attack.
No, it was Shawn. Him and Shawn and Marty Jannetty traded it for a month or so, right? That was during that time, right?
We don't care about the title switches. We care about the importance of it. It's not like the Intercontinental wasn't important until Razor Ramon got it. Yes, he added some extra machismo to it.
Thank you.
But I mean, come on, it matches the gold chains around his neck. That's just what the man does. Too sweet to Scott.
He drew your attention to it, and that's what this belt was doing over there in WCW.
Yeah, but who did you care about in 1993?
We're not talking about. We didn't get to that part yet. We talking about the look of the championship.
Okay, nobody saw the WCW championship. Nobody's watching WCW in 1993. So who became a bigger star? The Intercontinental Championship or Stunning Steve Austin?
Based upon the look of the person or the look of the title?
The look of the
title. Because we're talking about the look of the title.
The look of the title. Who did it?
You're not going to win it. You're not going. I'm going to always say the United States title looked better at that time. It looked better. Now I ain't saying nothing about matches because we ain't get to that part yet. Because that's round two. About match quality.
You thought that the 5-plate United States Championship in 1993 looked better than the old school WWF block logo Intercontinental Championship in 1993?
Yep.
Brother guy, come on.
Because it didn't get cool until those ladder matches. It didn't get cool until then.
That's not true. Are you
to me?
Okay.
I'm telling you.
This is a universal conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It may not have been cool to you, but what did the public think?
See, I don't know, because remember, wrestling fans, we were all divided. Remember?
Okay.
So and remember, I was a Sting guy. Wherever Sting was, that's what I was.
Regions. That's what.
And I was a Sting guy because my grandmother was a WCW lady at the time, and I was all over Sting. And then when I said, I was like, and not knowing the history, I honestly thought this was the original, and the Intercontinental title was the ripoff of this.
So
I didn't know it was the other round. I didn't know it was the other way around.
We have to put a poll out after this show. So hold on. We got to every time we can't come to a conclusion, we got to leave it up to the fans. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So hold on. So the first poll was, what was more popular in 1993, the United States Championship or the WWF Block Logo or the Intercontinental Championship? We'll just put the year on it. People know. Okay, cool. Okay. Got it. See, I'm writing it down.
Yes. And I don't know if you saw this comment, but I knew this was going to happen. Justin said, "Oh, is it not showing up?" He said, "Wait, what day is it?" I'm so lost.
Oh, yes. Yes, this is the very special time slot. This is the special championship culture edition at 10:30. You don't know what show you're watching. Yesterday we did the podcast, and today we're doing championship culture at our normal Wrestle Rum Now podcast time slot. We did a little switcheroo this week. So for those who may not look at, okay, there's Brian H. Hold on.
So wait a minute, no, that was 92. That was prior to this. Yeah, that was 92, right? When he had it, right? It was on his downward slope and then it spiked right back. Now it did slope down, but it sloped right back up instantly. It took a dip after that, but it dipped, it got right back up. So realness.
Okay, let's go.
We got to talk about the look of the IC title.
Don't specify the look because now you're cheating.
No, that's what round one is about. Round one is about breaking down the design. Talk about the design. Which version do you prefer? And did it serve its purpose? You already mentioned it served its purpose, but which version are you going to talk about, sir?
You know which way. You have got to talk about the WWF Block Logo. We're talking early 90s, all the way up until late 90s, Intercontinental Championship belt. We're talking about the one made famous by Bret the Hitman Hart, by Shawn Michaels, by Razor Ramon. I'm talking about that to this day is my all-time favorite championship. I love the ECW tag titles because they were designed originally looking like the Intercontinental Championship block logos. Anytime I saw any type of championship belt in that silhouette, whatever company tried to use a version of it, I was always for it. Look at that thing. That to me screams big deal. Now, a couple weeks ago, I talked about it as part of our Wrestling Realm Facts, and I said if there was a particular wrestling championship that would describe me as a fan, that beauty of a championship belt that you have right there, that solidifies the not just a mid-card championship, but one of the greatest championship titles of all time. And that right there is the one, as far as the look is concerned. I mean, it has transcended time. It's so good looking that they brought it back
on a white strap.
Now, hey, when they had the United States Championship, I'm just saying they didn't bring it back in its original form. They gave it a fresh look.
But, a new coat of red, white, and blue paint. We're gonna get to that. It's a reason I didn't pick that one because that. Ooh, okay. Sometimes you overdo the name to the point that it kind of overpowers the belt. And that's definitely one of them times that it definitely overpower. Like when you talk about big gold and you see how it looks so much gold, that's perfect because it's the big gold. But when you see 10 pounds of, you're like, what's so 10 pounds about it? Just like a bunch of paint on there. But I'm not being culturally desensitive or whatever because of I know the paint is for the different flags, but it's like I don't see 10 pounds of gold. But so this belt,
I don't see 10 pounds of gold.
No, I feel like the big gold has 10 pounds of gold, but I don't, But needless to say, not knowing what I know now, that this was the original and that's what followed. Same maker, same concept. It to me, this belt always seemed like it was missing something.
No, because brother guy.
And this is why. When you look at the United States belt with the texture on the side, like the big gold, and I feel like that added more a different look to it versus the Intercontinental when it only had just the wrestlers on the side. I always felt like it was missing something because even on the Winged Eagle on the side plates, it had the sunburst pattern on the side plates. Mm-hmm. These were just basic to me. And even on the main plate, because the Intercontinental didn't have anything but the globe, and we replaced the globe with the eagle, that's why I always felt like this had more detail than this one. So I always felt this looked a lot better than this. This definitely looked like I will give you this Intercontinental title. Without a shadow of a doubt, you knew this was the secondary title. You knew that.
Yeah.
This you had to question, like, hold on, which rank does this belong to?
Now here's the thing. I'm gonna tell you one thing I'm not gonna do. I will not disparage the look of the United States Championship, especially during that time period. Absolutely beautiful championship. Absolutely one of my favorite belts of all time. Now, I'll also admit that because it was inspired by the original block logo Intercontinental Championship, that's what made me love that championship even more. So, and of course, the Intercontinental Championship changed to its ugliest fashion ever. I mean, there was a natural gravitation for me towards the WCW three-plated United States Championship. And I think, dare I say, it was probably, well, I can't say that. I can't say it was putting on more interesting matches because it wasn't. Because that was when Rock and Stone Cold, like I said, this was when The Rock was taking over the nation. And, you know, he was hitting his stride. So I can't necessarily say that. But what I will say is this. If there was any disparage I would have against WCW's United States Championship versus the Intercontinental Championship, it would be that it wasn't as big as the IC title. If it was bigger, same girth and size of it, I'd be like, we might have some serious competition right now. But that's why the IC title will always have the edge. You know me, it's got to be big. I love big belts. I don't like anything small. Got to be big belts. I need big faceplates. And even if I were to get a custom United States Championship, I would request that it be bigger than the average size. Like I want the same size as the IC title. And so yeah, that's always been my approach when it comes to the aesthetics, look of the championship. Like I said, I'm deadlocked in the center when it comes to the looks of both those championships. Two absolutely beautiful belts. And like I said, my personal history with those championships, they go far beyond the moments or the superstars that may have held them during that time period.
But it's always a good thing to understand the difference when the belt changed. Because I feel like as the belts changed, the significance of that division kind of shifted as well. And it was like every time the belt changed, it added another layer to that level. You know what I'm saying? Like even when, and the reason I didn't pick this one over my shoulder as the belt to use, because that was a time where we're bringing it back, but we're bringing it back in our own company. We're going to put our stamp on it. You know, this is a belt that we've taken from, because remember the Cruiserweight title and the light heavyweight were merged together, but they gave us a new version of the Cruiserweight Championship, even though they had to put their WWF stamp on it. So that's why I didn't really pick that one.
Have we had that argument before about the Cruiserweight Championship and the differences between the WCW and the we've had this conversation. I think you did an entire show about. Was I on that show?
With WCW, yes.
Okay, that's what I feel like. Because I had some words about the Cruiserweight Championship.
Don't we know? Yeah. Season 2 of Championship Culture.
I believe it was. Yeah, I'm very opinionated about that. So.
That's one of your favorite belts. And the thing about that is, and every time the belt changes, which I can't deny, it's a different part of history and it's a different thing. Because even when we did the whole United States belt show, and I think it was called America, heck yeah, or something crazy we said.
That's why you guys kept saying America, like every other word. America.
But it made a lot of people realize how important that belt was at that time. And we're going to get to that. But let's move on to round two. Not ready to fight yet. In this round, this is what we're going to... In round 2, are you ready around this?
Let's do this.
We're going to talk about some reigns, some matches to watch, matches that made you pay attention. Let's compare some reigns and which belt of the two had overall better matches. When I say overall, from its inception to currently. So you can pick any time.
Okay. All right.
You don't have to say this, like for instance, I'm not going to say the Oval IC had a better match than the 3-plate. I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to defend why I think the United States title has had better matches. But I'm going to let you go first on this one. Because I know this is okay.
Oh man, here's the thing. We never go back and look and we're not talking about necessarily the topic of the conversation. We're talking about just in general pro wrestling history, right? This is our lineage. We're talking about its fans. We have never, I don't remember anybody going, yo, we got to go back and watch that United States Championship match. They came out with the DVD years ago. Remember that? The best of you was it what did they call that DVD? It wasn't like the best of the United States Championship, but it was.
I remember what you're talking about. I can see the cover because they did it with a couple of.
Yeah,
it was, but the cover had the belt on it, didn't it? It had the original.
I remember an IC title version. They did a World Heavyweight version. They did a WWE version. I don't remember if they did a United States Championship, but they did something.
They did something with that belt on the front of it, wasn't it? It was something with the United States belt on it, right?
I believe so. So if anybody's in the chat, please remind us or help us figure out what it was. But I remember it's not many moments in history where we say you got to go back and watch that match, and it happens to be for the United States Championship on any level. I'm not saying that it's not there, and I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm saying that the United States Championship was not at the forefront as far as the history-making moments in professional wrestling matches.
This was
I knew it was. That's what it was.
Yeah,
okay,
it had John Cena, Ric Flair, Booker T, Steamboat, and Lex Luger on there.
So even in the jumping of the United States Championship to another company, there was still not a lot of moments as far as the United States Championship that made us go, oh, I got to watch that match again. Oh, that was for the United States Championship. There was an era. Don't get me wrong. Like when we talk about the forgettable era, the 2010 era, the ruthless aggression era, that there was a wave of Dolph Ziggler matches, a wave of Kofi Kingston matches. I mean, and they used to, and even the Miz, they used to show off, right? And to me, that era really not put it back on the map, but really brought a whole different level to the point it was even hard to follow up after that. Once those guys have kind of moved on from them spaces, Kofi Kingston moved on to the New Day. You got you had Dolph Ziggler kind of moving in and out of the world title picture, so on and so forth. Then you got you had all types of plug and play guys, but those three in particular, I just vividly remember like saving United States Championship matches from Dolph Ziggler, Miz, and Kofi Kingston on I had an iPod video. Now I got a giant iPad the size of a brick. I mean, size of a TV. But at the time, those were matches I just genuinely loved to see. That era was dang near untouchable. But when you're talking about the history of the matches of these particular championships and where they hold its place, you got to be kidding me, brother guy. There's no way in the world you're going to sit on this goddamn show doing a realness takeover and tell me that anything that the United States Championship of the modern era, at least, I can't speak of before and after, because Magnum TA's era and Barry Windham's era, you know what I mean? And even the early years of Harley Race, that was a different animal in itself. But of the modern era, what matches do we go, well, you got to go back and watch that, and it happens to be for the United States Championship? You can't tell me, can you? But guess what, though? We don't go back and say, you got to watch the Intercontinental Championship match between Steamboat and Savage. You know what we say? You got to watch Savage Steamboat. You automatically know it's WrestleMania 3. You automatically know that match was so good that the dang on championship was almost secondary. That's how good the match was. But guess what, though? The Intercontinental Championship will always be a part of that lineage and a part of that history. When we talk about SummerSlam 98, the Highway to Hell, Triple H versus The Rock ladder match. What was that match? What was that match for? It was for the even though the belt was absolutely atrocious. We remember that, Chase. We remember. I remember being there sweating, trying to like, yo, if
you
Triple
really
H,
hate the old 5C.
I'm trying to tell you, I hate that thing with a passion. It was purple, it was small, and they got rid of my favorite championship of all time. When Triple H was chasing after that championship, I mean, we were like, bro, he could not beat The Rock or the Nation to save our lives. So when he finally beat him, it was such a huge moment for us. And what are we talking about? The United States Championship. And if you don't believe me, when you go to WrestleMania, what's it called now? Not Access, but the
Vault. Oh, yeah, the WrestleMania.
The little fan experience thing. I keep forgetting the name.
It's not.
Guess
It is
what?
like no. What is it called? World WWE World.
WWE World, right? They have a display of Triple H's gear going up the ladder and that ugly championship belt dangling from it. And I'm like, see, there you go. Once again, you got another Intercontinental Championship that is attached to these history. Now, we'll be here till 4:00 in the morning, and that's not the goal tonight. Even though I plan on breaking a record, but there are so many moments in pro wrestling history that are attached to the Intercontinental Championship. Let's talk about one of the major ones. Freaking Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart. That ladder match was a big deal, right? And that was that was a kind of a test run of where we were going. And then freaking course, WrestleMania 10. Shawn Michaels decided that he didn't want to send the belt back after being suspended for using performance enhancement drugs. And he was like, I'm not taking any steroids. What are you talking about? And of course, it came back and it led us to an undisputed 2 beautiful Intercontinental Championship belts held high at WrestleMania 10 at Madison Square Garden. That's my Jackie Chan version of it. I dream to go Square Garden. In Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden, hanging from the rafters. That's right. I just popped brother guy. Look at him. He's laughing. Look at this. That's how you got to pop the boys. See, he's trying not to laugh. And that moment has stood the test of time. That moment gave birth to an entire generation of professional wrestlers, even though the SummerSlam match with Razor Ramon was 10 times better. So not only do you have that championship attached to other history like ladder matches, you have the history of those who held it and how it led them from the first part of their careers to the last part of their careers. There you go. Put that in your pipe, light it up, and let's see what you can do with that one, brother guy, because I want to see how you convince the world that the United States Championship, as far as moments are concerned, can compete with the history of the matches holding on to the Intercontinental Championship, not to mention the moments. Are we getting the let me check the rounds. Are we getting the moments? Is moments on there? Moments. Because yeah. Nah, it's cool. Let me just go there. Because we could talk about talking smack. You want to go to that era too?
Go ahead.
Talk about the Miz and Daniel Bryan. The Intercontinental Championship was attached to the rebirth, the return of Daniel Bryan from his impending retirement due to his health issues and concussions. That championship is forever attached to that part of history. This is what I'm trying to explain to your listeners and your viewers, brother guy. The Intercontinental Championship is attached to the history of pro wrestling. The moments we all remember. Talking smack. The Miz getting drafted to SmackDown. The Miz arguing about the fact that he's the IC title holder and is not even on the show being featured. And guess what? He called a shot against Daniel Bryan, and it also played a major part in the return of Daniel Bryan. Not just once, but twice. Did we forget the ladder match at WrestleMania? We forgot about that. When long-haired Daniel Bryan made his triumphant return. Now, granted, he wasn't in the title picture, the World Championship, but we like, you know what? If they're gonna give us a little bit of Daniel Bryan, we'll take it. Him winning that ladder match. I can do this for days, brother guy. I could go on, and I could go on. Please tell me, what do you have attached to the United States Championship that could even come close to competing with the history of the matches involving the Intercontinental Championship? And I dare you to come out of the 80s, because that's where all the history was made.
Oh, so I'm gonna work backwards because I'm gonna address your last comment that you said.
This should be fun.
Daniel Bryan and Miz actually feud began with said belt. Let's not forget that. If it wasn't for that rivalry, for that said belt, the student versus teacher, we would not have gotten that great Intercontinental match. That's Exhibit A.
I love that moment.
Okay, so now, before I say this, you know, and I'm going to tell the world, one of my favorite matches of all time is the Royal Rumble 2001. Yep. It was a ladder match for the Intercontinental title, but you said it, and you proved my point so much that so many moments are attached to the Intercontinental title, but it has to have a ladder for some reason. But I'm not even going to dispute. I'm not even going to dispute that, because it seemed like you didn't mention. Did you? You didn't mention something without a ladder. You mentioned about 5 things with a ladder, but we're just going to let that be because that's a stipulation that has to be attached to that title. When you have a Hall of Famer as such that took a belt from one company and translated it over, and then put your eyes back on the product with a best of 7 series to make you say, oh, this is a big deal. This is a good match. This is who it is. because he not only said, the company is shutting down, they gave me both titles, and I am the man, I am number 1 and number 2 at the time. And then he had an evolution of himself and said, watch what I'm going to do. As a former 5-time world champion, I'm going to go back to this United States Championship, right? And I'm going to show you what I can do with this belt. And I'm going to put eyes on it. So when you say people don't say they want to go back, people still talk about this best of 7 series because that has been the basis for a lot of things when we got like Andrade and Carmelo here recently. Whenever they doing a best of, or will they, won't they, how will they coexist? We saw this with the Bar before they became the Bar. We saw them have a best of X Team matches series because the basis was already laid there by the Hall of Famer Booker T doing things with this United States Championship. So don't tell me that these aren't moments attached to this belt, because I'm going to give you another moment. You're greatest of all time.
Ooh, see that
you're greatest of all time. They gave him this belt because, yes, it was on a downward slope at that time, and they wanted to put a fresh coat of paint on it to make some money. And I'm going to give you that. They were doing it to make some money. They were doing it because it was a cool thing to do. They were trying something different. But this was their version of the belt, because the United States Championship, even though it has went through 3 different companies, it has always had 3 different identities for 3 different companies. So now this is their effort to try to say, what do we do? Even to the point that I think he was a 13-time champion at the time, went back and said, I can make this belt important. Look what I can do. I can start an open invitational to showcase it to the world, not the Intercontinental title, but the United States champion. I'm going to showcase these guys that have been on the indies, that have been doing what they need to do. I'm going to give them this platform against me, a multiple-time world champion, the company man holding not their secondary title, a title that they absorbed from another company. And let's look at these matches and say, wow, that open invitational was cool. That open invitational made us pay attention to not only John Cena, but to the United States Championship, even to the point we remember that's how we got introduced to Kevin Owens, because it was against him. Even when John Cena was fighting for the WWE Championship against Seth Rollins, what do we remember? Him being United States Champion. How many times have we had dual champions with this belt? Probably more times than we had dual champions with the Intercontinental. But that's an argument for a different time, because you said we don't have moments that people want to go back and talk about. Do we talk about Lex Luger, Mr. Red, White, and Blue, 950 days combined reign, right? Do we talk about the 16-time world champion that kept going back to the division to help bring some oomph to it and say, let me help this division, get them going so I can help put over the other guy and I can keep going back? Do we talk about how Sheamus not only held it not once, not twice, but 3 times, and had dance partners that you didn't think could hold their own with him? And guess what? You remember those. Did we not talk about I'm gonna say this with a great assault.
Yeah, please do.
Bobby Lashley, right?
Oh gosh.
Yes, it was a moment in time where he was United States champion going into WrestleMania, right? I'm not even gonna talk about that. But then him and Apollo Crews with a new iteration of the belt. And then again, another evolution of Bobby Lashley. We got it a 3rd time. So don't tell me nobody remembers this, because that was the resurgence of Bobby Lashley's career before they finally said, give him the WWE Championship, because he proved himself not once, not twice, but 3 times. Even after getting that, I could talk about The Miz. I could talk about, why am I drawing a blank? Shelton Benjamin. We didn't even get to that. We could even talk about the United States of Nakamura. Not once, but twice. But I'm not going to go that deep. I'm just going to let you say this. And I'm going to say, and I stayed in the modern era for a reason. Because when we go back to WCW, this championship will always be known as the former world champion going back to help put this division back over and back into the limelight. Because for the bulk of the time when it was in WCW, let's call it what it is, who was holding the world title hostage? So they had to have something else for people to do, right?
This guy. And
exactly. So you take that away, and what do you get? You get a lot of those greats having those matches to help bring up the people.
You you gave us a lot of good history, brother guy, and you did. I'll even admit, yes, it was Booker T. He was the main reason why I started to embrace that championship, because I didn't like the WWE version at first for very good reason, right? But we're having a conversation about the United States versus the Intercontinental Championship, and you talked about the United States in its heavy area when it had all the WWE sauce spread all on it. You ain't said nothing about WCW, man.
No, I did. I ended with that. I said somebody had a stronghold on a world title. So guess what the wrestlers had to do? They had to keep going back. In 1 year, Ric Flair was world champion, United States champion, back to world champion, right? He kept going back, just like Sting, right?
Okay.
If you think about it, that's how the formula was with WCW. And what happened to the great Bret Hart when he got there?
No, that was a consolation prize.
But why? Who was? Think about it. If you ask, exactly. So guess what? You had to have another title that was meaningful for these guys. And if you think about it, a Ric Flair who had already had that title multiple times in NWA and WCW kept going back for different reasons. You know what I mean? It was different feuds. It was different things that were happening. And that's why I'm saying the WCW time served its purpose of, here's our mid-card title, but the difference in us, yeah, we have workhorses in this division, but we have former world champions that's going to help elevate these workhorses. We didn't have just workhorses proving themselves. No, I took a former world champion because WWE tried that too with the Intercontinental title, and it really didn't fall. It didn't really do too well because Triple H holding it during the 2-man power trip was like, okay, this is stupid. Give it to somebody else. We don't need to see that. Even when Ric Flair got the Intercontinental title in WWE, people seem to forget that because it was a forgettable moment. But we don't forget about when he was United States champion.
What I'm saying to you, brother guy, is at its most popular space, at the height of, we're talking when WCW was the #1 wrestling company in the world, right? You have yet to talk about in the United States Championship moments. You, my friend, are discussing all the reasons why the top of the card had a chokehold on it, and yet you are not talking about any moments. And since you're talking about championships connected to ladders, let's not forget Sold Out, right? Oh, did we forget Sean Six-Pac Waltman versus Eddie Guerrero? And it has been included as one of the greatest.
You said it, not me. You said it, not me.
You said all the IC title matches is always wrapped up in ladders, but
that's your words.
The United States Championship, if you go on the Best of Ladder Match DVD, that's on the match. They said, look, WCW wasn't known for having a lot of them, but guess what? This is one of the best ones that they had. And of course, it's the late great Eddie Guerrero and Sean Six-Pac Waltman fighting over the United States Championship. And what a ladder match. So don't think the United States Championship is as excused. But listen, you gave me all the greatest moments. Like I said, once the E took over. But I'm talking about, why wasn't the United States Championship having as many moments when it was the #1 wrestling company in the world? There's only 2 people that we remember that had meaningful runs, maybe 3, if you want to include Bret Hart, because I don't like that run, but it's for different reasons.
I hated that run because it was such a microwave. It was a hot potato. It was like, yeah, I didn't like it either. But I will agree with you. I feel like it was a consolation prize, like you said.
Since, like you said, we were separated by regions still, even during that time period, as archaic as that might sound. We're talking about, what was the most impactful feud that you remember for the United States Championship at its most popular height of WCW? Not the championship itself necessarily, but at WCW's height of popularity, where they were kicking WWE's butt for 83 weeks straight.
That was in 99, right?
Anywhere between 96 and 90, top of 98 maybe.
Okay. So from 96,
there was only one feud, and I dare you try to say it'd be anything else.
96 was
no, forget 96.
No, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko. That was during that time.
That was because not the United States. That was not for the United States Championship.
It was Eddie Guerrero had it, and then he lost it to Dean Malenko. That was that brief. It was that brief time because. You know why nobody cared? Because Eddie, it was supposed to be DDP was supposed to win that match. Remember, That's when DDP was there.
Now listen, we're on the right path, brother guy.
Okay.
Just keep going there.
And then DDP got it.
There we go.
But DDP finally got it. But think about it, because remember, DDP was supposed to get it, and they gave it to Eddie. When Eddie got it, and then it was Dean Malenko. I feel like you had Jeff Jarrett in the mix too, right? Jeff Jarrett was in the mix because that's when Goldberg was coming into the company too.
Nobody cared about Jeff Jarrett at the time. He was going back to WWE not too long after that.
He was jumping back and forth. So I get that. He was jumping back and forth.
So
but it started.
What was the one feud that everybody cared about when it associated? DDP and
DDP.
And who?
DDP.
Who was his nemesis at that time? That really had made a run at that United States Championship. That this is the only thing that made people really. Because if he wasn't fighting,
if you gonna say Raven,
that's exactly what the heck.
That's because you like Raven. Like Raven.
No. First of all, time out. No, sound the air horns, man.
I'm gonna say DDP and everybody, because remember DDP was chasing that belt for a while. He was chasing it,
and he had to deal with Raven's flock every week.
Every week. That's what I'm saying. He was chasing it for a while, because that's why I remember back when Eddie got it. Because I thought Eddie was going to stay in the cruiserweight division. Remember, and it was like him and Dean Malenko. I was like, oh, okay, this is different. But then it went straight to. I'm trying to remember who else in that time frame. I can't remember who else.
It was.
I'm gonna have to look it up. Hold on, let me look it up because I can't remember who else. Because that was when Sting had it the year before, and then it went to what's his name from Japan? The guy that came over for Japan when they were doing this stuff. Because Sting dropped it to him in Japan. Because I remember that.
You are struggling to put this all together because nobody remembers this.
Hold on, I'm gonna tell you.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you. Hold on. I've got notes. Hold on. I'm gonna take a page out of Dwayne, but so. Oh God, I forgot. This is why I forgot it. The one man gang. We're gonna let that be.
Yeah, let it be.
Conan, Ric Flair. It was vacated because Flair got injured. Then that's how Eddie got it. Eddie got it in a tournament when he defeated DDP. Dean Malenko, Jeff Jarrett, Steve McMichaels, Kurt Hennig, DDP, Raven, and then Goldberg.
And that's when people started to care about the United States Championship again. Because after DDP and then Goldberg was the one, like you said. Goldberg put. When Goldberg got that United States Championship, everybody knew what was next. Goldberg went into his world title match with Hollywood Hogan as the United States champion, right? Now vacated afterwards, right? But who remembers? That's like two moments that you named in WCW at the height of WCW. But of course, what happened to it after a while? It went elsewhere. Why? Because of what you said. Everything was always about the big gold during that time period, right? So there you have it. You've given me all these moments about the United States as far as the matches are concerned, but they were all WWE matches. Now, at that point, there's a bias because now it's a creative thing versus the legacy versus the lineage. I'm not seeing how your argument's holding up with this one, brother guy.
So let me ask you this. In 99, and I'm going to just keep going back to 99, when the focus was on, and let's call it what it is. We know when the focus on Hogan, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the show is all about Hogan, right?
In 99, though?
Think about it. And Flair was Flair. That was short hair Flair, wasn't it? In 99?
99, Hogan was in and out because Hogan was, he was the Wolfpack and the NWO getting back together. It was an awkward time period.
Yeah, but it was the focus. What I'm saying when I say the focus, look who was in that division. Because now I'm looking at my notes. I remember this because Bret Hart got the United States title after it was vacated because Goldberg was champion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then literally you had Lex Luger with that short reign. Lex Luger's back, short reign, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bret Hart, DDP, right? And I remember because it was on Nitro. He won. Then it went back to Bret Hart. Roddy Piper for some odd reason.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Hall at Super Brawl. Now this is when it gets really weird, and this is where it dips the most into the why are you doing this? Scott Steiner got it. I'm sorry, Scott Hall had to vacate it.
Yep.
Scott Steiner got it. He had to vacate it.
Mm-hmm.
Then, for some odd reason, it was awarded to David Flair from his father.
Yep. See, this is your history that we're talking about.
But then there was a title holder. Then Sid Vicious got it. Goldberg got it back. Bret Hart, Scott Hall. Somebody else held it. And then Jeff Jarrett vacated. Jeff Jarrett got it back. Vacated. Scott Steiner vacated. This was, now I remember, this was during the what is WCW doing era.
Oh yeah, that's what you.
This
you
is
mentioned. You said 99. I was like, listen.
At the end of 99, that's when we got the what are we doing here?
Got a little wonky.
And Lance Storm rejuvenated it by making it the Canadian Championship,
which was fun.
But remember, that's when Terry Funk added some more fun to it. But then it went right back to Lance Storm. And everybody was like, Lance Storm might lose it, but he's going to get it right back because Lance Storm, as a character, made you pay attention, especially when he was the belt collector.
Team Canada. The Team Canada run.
And that was the last spike of it. But then, remember, it dipped real hard. Then it spiked up a little bit when Lance got it back. But then that's when the writings on the wall that WCW was at its end. And then Booker T got it on, what show was that? When did he get it? He got it right before they brought it out, right?
Yeah, because he lost to it was the last match that he had with Scott Steiner was for both belts.
Okay, that's what it was because he got it at the very end.
Yeah, it was a winner take all type situation. So, and then it kind of went in, kind of went out. So it's as far as the invasion angle and they gave it to Canyon randomly and then it disappeared.
No, it didn't disappear yet. Remember, it went to Jerry, Rhino, Kurt Angle, and Edge.
It disappeared.
Kurt Angle and Edge had that was a good exchange for it. Then it was unified. Because remember when Tajiri got it, everybody was like, "Oh, okay, Tajiri."
No, nobody thought that.
Yes, they did. Because Tajiri was featured. Remember, that was the invasion stuff.
But that United States Championship at that point was a prop. We talk about the history and the legacy and the lineage and the matches attached to it, and they were just playing hot potato. Who wants this? You want it? Oh, yeah, go give it to him. So
while you're saying that, I think that's a good segue for round 3. Flawless victory.
just go through all the sound effects of Mortal Kombat.
So realness for round 3.
Here we go. Round 3.
We've been touching on this a lot, but now it's time to decide. And this is the biggest point I think that we're going to argue about.
Here we go.
First argument and I'm going to break this down, right?
Yep.
Did the title make the company? Or did
Here we go. You always want to ask these type of questions.
Or did the company make the title?
Let me tell you why this is a bias and you're cheating again. This is why this question is not fair. I'm going to tell you why.
All right, good.
It's because in the earlier argument, fresh out of round 2, you began to talk about some of the greatest moments of the United States Championship, but you talked about the resurgence of that particular championship in the new company, right? You talked about what it used to be to what it eventually became, because I hated when they gave it the Big Show. It was too small, whatever the case may be. But you talked about that Booker T Best of 7 moment. And then you talk about what kind of followed it afterwards, because WWE's United States Championship lineage by far, to me, can probably argue carries more weight than anything previous to that. We're talking WCW and maybe NWA. Now that's debatable. Don't get me wrong. That's very debatable. But if that was the argument or that was the forefront of the conversation, this might be going in a different direction. But see, half the legacy of the United States Championship had that WWE sauce poured on top of it. And that's kind of cheating because that's the same sauce that gave birth to the Intercontinental Championship and kept its lineage going for as long as it did. So it's like this question is cheating because I can sit there and cut it off and say, okay, if you're talking NWA, WCW versus Intercontinental Championship, to me, there's no comparison. That there's as far as their lineage versus the legacy of the Intercontinental Championship, it doesn't even match up. But the problem is half of that lineage and legacy took place for a long period of time in WWE. So you got to almost like specify, like, are we talking about United States Championship in WWE versus the Intercontinental Championship in WWE since the beginning of the time? Because now there's too much weight to that argument. You can make that point over and over again. That's what I'm saying. So you're kind of cheating with this one, brother guy. It's because you could easily take half of that and make an argument for it. But I'm like, but half of that is in WWE. Like, we're not talking about the Monday Night era, the Monday Night Wars era. We're not talking about the rock and wrestling regime, that era of WCW trying to make its way into the mainstream versus WWF was already there. So this is about to be an intriguing argument. Let's see where you go with this one.
So this is what I'm gonna give you this tidbit. When it comes to the United States Championship, the company generally makes the belt, right? But if you go back to the NWA, the belt made the NWA. And I'm gonna say this because back in the territory days, right? And let's just talk about North Carolina. That's where the NWA United States Championship back in 1975 in its inception was kind of like its spiritual home, its place for it to be. And it was insane because you had a person like Harley Race, Terry Funk, who were larger than life stars that were on every show, on a marquee, you name it, that's who you wanted to go see. So when that belt was attached to them, they made the company. And they made it so they are the ones to see. They're the ones that you want to go see. So when they're fighting Blackjack Mulligan, when they're losing to Paul Jones, and even so, you go from a North Carolina to a Virginia to a South Carolina. These different territories, then you start to introduce, think about it. We know North Carolina is Ric Flair's country, right?
Of course.
But look what Terry Funk was able to do there. But then you introduce a Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who it kind of became his home too. But if it wasn't for those guys during that time, making that belt that important on these house shows, because remember, this is pre-TV. This is pre, oh, look what happened at this show. They could have the same match 17 times and nobody would know.
Back when we say wrestling was still a live event business.
Correct. And it's insane because you had these pillars of wrestling that we consider now that without them, we may not be having some of the people that we're enjoying now, because oftentimes wrestlers reference those people, right? So when it shifted to WCW, it lost its what was special about it, because now it didn't just become a secondary title. It became another belt. It became something else for the wrestlers to hold. And it had points where it dipped up, but in WCW, it had a lot more lows than it did highs. Was that creative's problem, or was it the wrestler holding it? No, it was the company made the championship. It's why it dipped. Now, the resurgence happened when you had those people that knew what a mid-card title was supposed to be,
Goldberg,
because
DDP.
Right. And they put the eyes on the product, and that's why it dipped up. I mean, that's why it trended up. Now, when you fast forward to WCW saying, oh, we need to bring this back because now we're separating brands, bring that legacy here because we know the roots of it. We know what it can hold, and we know the commonality of a United States Championship will be synonymous with our Intercontinental, and it will have the same weight. It will be on the same level as the one on Raw, or this is on SmackDown. We know what the second tier is. Now you have those wrestlers that were in the company that saw the ups and downs, the left, right, whatever you want to call it, and they were able to put those matches on and bring that level of, we're making the belt now. We're adding this to it. Because, like I said with Booker T, had it not been for that Best of 7 series, the belt might not even been that important, because it was one year where it was hot-shotted so bad, and I often talk about this, that I was like, why are we doing this to the belt? And it dipped because that was the year it went from like Finley to Bobby Lashley to Mr. Kennedy. Everybody had the belt at one time. But then it was moments where you're like, okay, is this person just holding it because we don't know what to do with them? Or are they saving it for a moment?
Right.
So that's where we get into the confusion of the question being, does the title make the company? So the title made the company for NWA's sake, but the company made the title in WWE. WCW, you can't even categorize it. So it's bookend with, look where its inception was, its low point to its high point. Because even when it comes to the Intercontinental title, and I'm going to just take a stab at it, from its inception to now, It's almost been the same thing. Even though it's been in one company, it's almost been the same exact trend when you think about it. So at certain times, when it was on the house show circuit, it was actually doing what it was supposed to do. Then it dipped, and then it came back. It didn't dip as hard as the United States title, but when you come to the United States title, you can't argue that without that belt, we might not get some of these moments that we're enjoying now. We might not get some of these things because, let's be honest, anybody care that CM Punk is an Intercontinental Champion?
Nah.
Okay, but we care that Sheamus hasn't been Intercontinental Champion.
Sure. Yep.
You get what I'm saying? So that's and that's where I'm thinking that's where WWE said we're going to introduce the women's title. It's a reason they introduced the women's US first, because in the history that one came first, and then the women's Intercontinental. Out of respect for the lineage of it. So that's why I'm saying the WWE definitely can make the title, and they have for the Intercontinental title, and it will always be there. And I think ultimately the promotion matters. Because with the United States title, and we touched on this a lot, this belt has been replicated in multiple companies. You never had an Intercontinental. You always had a play on the word, but IWGP had a United States Championship. Countless indies, their secondary title was always United States Championship.
So did they also had Intercontinental Championship, though. I think they might have been one of the only ones. New Japan Pro Wrestling.
But and then what did they do? They took a flag and said, we don't need to splatter it. We're going to do it tastefully and still give it some prestige. They took the best of both worlds and said, okay, watch, we can do it better. But that's what WWE has been doing. I think they watched what WCW failures were and made sure their secondary title did not have that same trajectory.
Okay. So my thing is, did the company make the title, or did the title make the company? Now, when you think about the Intercontinental Championship, it's a mainstay, right? Since 79, when Pat Patterson was the first Intercontinental Champion. It has kind of always held its place, with the exception of it being merged, and it was gone for a little bit, but they brought it back, and it held a tournament for it, and it kind of reignited its lineage and history, right? Now, when you think about the United States Championship, the United States Championship carried a bit of a weight in Jim Crockett Promotions, right? When you think about the stars who held it, Magnum TA, Tully Blanchard, of course, Ric Flair, and then, even before that, guys like Harley Race. Like, to me, during that time period, it meant something, but it didn't hold up to the NWA. The NWA was the NWA. In their situation, the territory years, as they call it, the National Wrestling Alliance carried more weight than any particular championship. It's because, think about it, you're dealing with multiple territories. They had their own, like, territorial championships anyway. You know what I mean? So if you couldn't have, you couldn't be the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, because that was always a traveling champion. You had your, North Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, or, you know what I mean? That whatever championship that you have for your top draw in your territory, in your promotion, right? To me, that shows that the championship itself doesn't carry as much weight as the company, because the company is bigger than the championship. Now, when you talk about the Intercontinental Championship, it's not much of WWE's history that you can talk about where the championship is at least included in almost everything. So for that reason, I think in WWE's case, the company made a championship, but they made it in a way where the championship's DNA it's wrapped up in it at the same time, versus a separation of, hey, the NWA is always going to be the NWA. It just happens to have a United States Championship too, and it had the lineage attached to it that kind of got lost in the sauce come WCW. Because if you think we got to compare Tully Blanchard's run to Stunning Steve Austin, come on now, it doesn't even add up. You know what I mean? So one was a main eventer, one was just holding the championship. So that's my whole thing. So this is short and sweet to the point. That's why I can just, it's easy to put up and put down.
And it's And that's a good way of looking at it. And that's why I wanted to break it down that way, because
This is the most civilized. This is the most civilized round that we've had, by the way. I just want to put that out there.
And it's crazy because I think we understand, the business of a championship, the purpose of a championship.
There you go.
Because it's always, you can always compare the United States title between three different companies. But when you compare the Intercontinental title, you got to compare when.
Right.
And it's crazy because when we talk about, and it's hard, the last part for round 3 I wanted to talk about was specifically for WWE. Oh, he lost the light.
Uh-oh.
Man down. You all right?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
Right. Don't mind me.
You having technical difficulties. Yeah. When we talk about the WWF, right? Because WWE. Why did I say F? They had the Intercontinental and the United States title at the same time. They've always been on opposite brands, whether it be Raw or SmackDown, right? True. And I know we've talked about this on the Wrestling Around Now podcast, usually at Wednesdays at 10:30, where we say certain wrestlers fit better on certain shows, right? But when it comes to these two belts, do they fit better on one show than the other? Because remember, the United States title was introduced on SmackDown as a SmackDown exclusive when it was reintroduced to the audience. And the Intercontinental title was on Raw.
Right.
Does one fit better on a brand better than the other? Kind of like what we talked about, these wrestlers fit better on different brands. Oh, I think he's frozen now. So when I say different brands, I always felt like the United States title fit a lot better on SmackDown. And it always seemed like they showcased that more because the Intercontinental title would have those moments and they would be on the pay-per-view. They would be on the main event of the show when the champion wasn't there. But the United States title was always there to give us those matches. That's why I just feel like SmackDown should keep the United States. Raw should have the Intercontinental. Do you think that it mattered which show?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because I think the WWE audience was always familiar with the Intercontinental Championship, right? Versus the United States Championship. I don't want to say it was relatively new, but a lot of people, especially kids and fans, thought that championship started with the WWE. You know what I mean? So it's almost like you didn't have to redefine what it was because the older fans knew what the United States Championship was, but everybody's already familiar with the IC title. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't want to say it was almost by default, but it was almost like SmackDown was treated the same way WCW was at one point in time. Like SmackDown was considered the secondary show. Hey, listen, these guys aren't on Raw because Raw was always the flagship. But hey, let's send them over to SmackDown and let's see what they can do. And guys like Paul Heyman would be like, okay, we're going to take that as a challenge. You know what I mean? Give me Undertaker, give me Kurt Angle, give me Eddie, Brock, whatever. And they all, The Rock, whoever. And they use that platform to say, okay, look, we'll take an existing lineage and we'll build on it. And that's, to me, what seemed like it happened. It just, as much as I appreciate when Miz came over in, I guess, 2011, whatever it was, to SmackDown with the IC title, it just seemed like United States Championship always fit on SmackDown. See, I told you, this is, we get to the end of the conversation to start being civilized, because I think that does make more sense at the end of the day. So, yeah, I always felt like the United States, to me, it always had its strongest moments, at least as far as WWE is concerned, on SmackDown rather than Raw. Except, them earlies, like I said, those Kofi Kingston, Dolph Ziggler years, as I call them. You know what I mean? And even with the Miz, you know what I mean? So it's a tough call, but I think overall, definitely United States, SmackDown, Intercontinental, Raw.
Okay, we agree on something. Can you believe that? That's crazy.
We're making progress.
And guess what that tells me?
What's that?
It's time for round 4.
There it is.
If you're still here with us, put your thoughts in these comments. You can answer these questions because definitely in round 4, I want to hear from you. I want to know, between everybody in the comments and everybody joining us live, everybody under the sound of my voice, put in the comments what version of the Intercontinental or the United States title do you prefer? Which one do you think is the best? And this is what we're going to talk about, not from our personal standpoint, but from which one. So let me give you the backstory about this. When we talk about which belt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, sometimes the look of the belt can really determine whether or not it's a
Very
good
true.
belt. It's a good belt. Let's call it what it is, because more people, we see more spinners now than ever. Just like I'm starting to see an uptick in everybody liking the Undisputed belt, but everybody hated the Undisputed Championship, as in the WWE, the original Undisputed Championship at first.
Yep.
But now it seems like everybody loves it. When Jey Uso introduced the blue globe on the side of the Intercontinental title, all the hate went away for that title.
Really,
it was like, it was like, oh, so that's all y'all needed was color?
a little
Okay.
bit of blue.
But we still get heat for the United States title. I have the blue behind the stars.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm saying.
So we hated it at first, and now we're like, it's missing blue.
Yeah, it was like, because when it debuted, we were happy to let this one go.
Sure.
But we were like, okay, you can add some blue on it. It's like they said, all right, strip away some things about it. So realness.
Yes.
Not your personal bias, but which one do you think has been the best looking belt of the Intercontinental and the US title? Not from like your personal, like I like this one for me, but from a company standpoint or from a overall standpoint.
I will always say probably, and this is ones we've pretty much been talking about the entire show. The WWF block logo Intercontinental Championship is always going to be, to me, the pinnacle. That's like the symbol of, when you say IC title, that's the first thing people think of. Don't get me wrong. There's a generation that grew up in the ruthless aggression era that loves that oval IC title, and I do too. I liked it when it got big. I call it the Randy Orton era, because when I saw it around Randy Orton, so I said, oh my goodness, look, the belt got bigger, and all of a sudden I started to like it again. Even when Eric Bischoff brought it back, it didn't look like it was all that big, but as iconic as that giant oval WWE, I call it the WWE version of the oval chain, because the WWF version was small, skinny, and purple. Hated it. But the IC title block logo, to me, will always be the ultimate symbol of the Intercontinental Championship. And like I said, the proof is that they brought it back. Like it was a previous design. Instead of creating something brand new like we have now, they decided to modify it and make a modern version of a classic on a white strap. You know what I mean? And to me, it held the same level of prestige, of course, in the right hands, of course, but just the look of it itself, you know what I mean? Had it like, it looked like it was like, hey, this is a classic lineage. So when you held it, you were like, okay, this makes me feel important to be attached to this lineage of the ones who held this prior to this. So, that's kind of, that's that version of the Intercontinental Championship will always be the best looking version of it all. And as far as the United States Championship, I grew up on the 3-plate version, but I'll admit that the 5-plate version of that championship is a beauty. Now, don't get me wrong. There's an NWA version of the United States Championship that I really like. I don't remember what year it's from, what time period, but it's, to me, it's a very classic silhouette as far as wrestling belts are concerned. I love that championship as well. But yeah, the 5-plate United States WCW version, and then, like I said, the block logo, WWF block logo Intercontinental Championship version are the two best looking versions of those championship belts ever created. Now go ahead, Chris Jericho, lover and favorite guy, because I have a bad feeling what you're probably going to say when it comes to you as far as the best looking Intercontinental Championship. Let's see if you're going to tell the truth, or is Judas playing in your head right now?
So, yes, I do love that belt, but notice I framed the question for a reason. Not my personal opinion, but I think the white strap Intercontinental that was brought back by Cody Rhodes was the best looking Intercontinental title for a couple reasons. One, we weren't introduced to white straps at the time because none of the women's belts were on white straps. It was eye-catching. We hadn't seen a unique strap like that in, I think, since the blue or the purple color strap, right? I think we had the Raw and SmackDown. We had the did we have the pennies at the time?
I believe so.
Or do we have the copper? I think we had. We had the pennies. We didn't have the nickels.
No,
right?
It's the big penny still, I believe.
Okay. I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. Yeah, it was, because by the time, See, I don't know because you remember it started out with the scratch logo and then it went to the network logo. So it might
Right.
have been some type of transition moment.
But that way, the fact that it was one that design was brought back with a modern feel, because yes, it was a thicker belt. It had shinier plates. It had I'm looking at it across the room. You could see the stars were a little bit more raised around the globe. Everything about it looked like, okay, no matter which show I'm on, because, you know, it was interchangeable between which show we go to, whether it was with the Big Gold or with the WWE Championship, or if it was with whatever belt, whatever show was on, it always felt like, yep, that's what I want to see. It made that title, regardless if it was a main event program or not, and even I just remember The Miz being a flag bearer for Raw when Brock Lesnar wasn't around, and that just felt like, yep, that belt is important because everybody wanted that championship. And even when it went through different people, everything about it, that is a title that I think will stand the test of time for the Intercontinental title.
Right.
Now, as far as US, my heart is saying the 3 belt, but the 5 belt, because when you look at your secondary title, because the Big Gold, yes, had the 3, but the WCW World Heavyweight Championship with the 5 plates, the Ron Simmons one, I think that matched that so much more that it gave it it was a stepping stone of a secondary title. So that way, when you get to the Big Gold, it felt like, okay, that is an upgrade for me. Not necessarily in the same family, but an upgrade. Because the 3 belt always felt like it was Big Gold light because of the nugget texture on the side. Now, gone is a lot of the nugget texture on the side, and they put the flags on the side. It felt more like without a shadow of doubt, a mid-card belt. Not to be confused with, wait a minute, could this be the world champion? Because the 3 belt, the 3 plate, let's call it what it is. If a casual fan saw it, they might have thought that was the champion. And remember, that was the mold that was being used different places. Because it had the eagle, biggest day. You might think that was the champion because it had the nugget texture and all the elements. But when you did the 5, okay, no, that's the secondary champion.
Right.
So that was my thing. Yes, I do love the oval. But realness.
Yes.
While we're in round 4.
Here we go.
Does the different versions help or hurt? And now let me explain.
Oh boy. Now you're getting complicated. We went from fighting to now we're getting deep.
No, and I'm gonna explain why. The 3 or the 5 plate doesn't hurt or help anything, right? They were
no.
They were
pretty much the same title.
Yeah, they're okay.
Same thing almost. Yeah.
Just like this one with the scratch logo or the clean logo. Same version, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
All right. But then we got, so when I say that's one version of the United States, this is another version, the spinner, and then the current, right?
Right.
For as long as this was around, I think that this hurt the division because, like you said, when Big Show, the first champion, it looked like he had a toy.
It was so skinny. It looked like a real belt. I'm like, bro, is this something that goes in your pants? I was pissed. First of all, I have to vent. I'm sorry, brother guy.
No, go ahead.
I have to get this off my chest. When they first made the announcement that they were bringing that championship back, Stephanie McMahon made that announcement. It was on SmackDown, I believe, and they were about to hold a tournament for it, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, they're about to bring back one of my favorite belts. Now, in my mind, I've been a belt person my whole life, so in my mind, I'm waiting to one. There's 2 things in the back of my mind. One, I'm waiting to see if they're going to bring back my original belt, or let's be excited, they might give us a fresh take on it. Let's see what we're doing. Now, mind you, that championship was one of my favorite ones because I wasn't huge fans when they changed the look of the Intercontinental Championship, but the United States Championship still resembled that look, which is why I loved it so much. So I was disappointed when they got rid of it, but when they started bringing it, I say, okay, they're bringing it back. They're probably bringing it back and just add like a WWE version at the top instead of WCW, because I'm analyzing. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna break this down. So they'll probably get rid of the WCW at the top and find a way to put WWE on it. I got it all figured out in my head. You know, I don't know how old I was, but and then they debuted that. But I was like, what is this? First of all, it looks skinny, and I was like, bro, this is booty. This ain't gonna work. And then they gave it the Big Show, and I was like, man, this is dumb. And like I said, once again, it wasn't until I came back later on, and I don't remember who had it. Might have been Booker T. I started paying attention to that. I noticed it. It was like, okay, it's much bigger than it used to be, and I was like, okay, I'm okay with this version of this now. But when I say I was not happy about it, I was thoroughly. The shape of it was different than what we used to seeing. The big flag, I was pissed. And of course, in my mind, anybody knows young realness didn't like change. I don't want nothing to switch up. I don't want nothing. I want everything to stay the same. So naturally, when they debuted that version, I was not happy. So that it just, that always rubbed me the wrong way.
And this is probably why they took so much blue off of the new version, because they had so much blue on this one.
Yeah.
And the thing about this, I remember when the announcement happened, because this was post the world title coming back, the big gold. And I said, oh, they just literally brought back the big gold. They're going to bring back the 5 plate. And I was like, because that was the one that they retired. Right. And remember, this is we merged titles together, and then they brought the Intercontinental title back. They were bringing back the United States, because this was merged with the Intercontinental for a small time. And I said, okay, when they bring titles back, they just bring back a version, like you said. I thought it was going to be literally this with WWF on the top.
Bingo. That's what
the big goal was. And I was like, okay, we about to get in.
And they did something similar with the Cruiserweight Championship for WWE. You know what I mean? Like when they came up with their own version of it, it wasn't the same belt, but it was like a WWE version of that belt. It almost resembled it in a way. So it was familiar looking. Mm-hmm. That right there, I was disgusted.
And I was like, why? And the crazy part is, like, if you look at, I don't know what the Eagle is going through on the side plate. I don't know what he's having issues. I don't know what that is.
Newsflash.
And I was like,
I just found out today that was an eagle.
Oh, you didn't know that?
Never knew.
Okay. But it looks like he's going, and then there's a big old star at the top. And I'm like,
thank you.
Is he holding the shield?
Championship Culture. Thank you for Championship Culture for educating me. I never knew. I've always knew it was a Statue of Liberty. Lady Liberty was
you knew.
But
if you look,
I never knew.
Yeah,
wow.
If you look at the pictures, you'll see his wingspan. It's like a silhouette. Like his wings are here, and you can see his face. That's why I was like, well, what is he doing?
Is that a custom version, or is that a WWE shop version?
No, this is the shop. So the other one is the thing. But this is when they had that special, because I think, don't quote me on this. Mm-hmm. They were on the shop for a while, and it was listed as a 2mm, and they took them down to $125, and then they stopped selling it. This was right when AJ Styles had it, and he was wearing it, and it was like, okay, and then they came out with the other version. I was like, okay, but then they stopped selling this altogether after that.
Right. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's pretty, and don't get me wrong, I think also the nameplate made me not like this belt.
Because you don't do nameplates.
I don't like nameplates at all. And that's a whole nother story. But now, as far as the Intercontinental title, right?
Yep.
We know that we had the black one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just call it. I'm not going to talk about the different color straps, because everybody had a different color strap, right?
Especially
that's all one.
Not no blue ones.
That's all what blue, yellow, you name it, white. I'm talking about that's all one family.
Got it. Yep.
Then we got the oval. That's another family.
Yep.
And then let's just say the white stripe, because that's a separate, because it looked a little, it had slight changes. And then we got the new version.
Mm-hmm.
Realness, I got to be honest with you.
Uh-oh. Too much blue.
I think when they changed it to the current version, it actually hurt.
In what way? I'm intrigued now. So now I got to hear this one.
So I'm going to grab the belt. I should have had the belt ready. I'm going to grab the belt so you can see why. And I'm going to tell you why I think it hurt. All right. And you're going to probably agree with me on this part.
Okay. So at the end of the day, the idea of, does the color of a championship hurt it? Right? I don't know. It's hard to kind of like put your finger on it to decide, like, hey, you know what? Too much color can actually hurt the look of a championship belt. But it's I'm curious to see what you have to say about it, brother guy.
So as we know, the Intercontinental title has never had stones on it, right?
Correct.
When you look at this belt, it looked like it should have stones on it. So in the effort to some of the newer belts of WWE, they'll put these like ribbons and things around there, or like designs that'll kind of fake you out to say, okay,
stone.
Yeah,
or,
so
or
that's
stone should be right there in some way.
Now, don't get me wrong. when you look at this belt, you can't tell what it is. You cannot tell what is this championship, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the globes on the side, they did something dramatic, but the biggest focus of it, remember the 24/7 title? And it just said 24/7. When I look at this,
trash.
I feel like I gotta say Intercontinental Champion because it's all the way around the middle.
It's wrapped, yeah.
There is no banner, which is traditionally on every Intercontinental title.
True.
We could have put a banner on here across the bottom or something. You know what I mean? Why make the name go all like it's literally a circle with the globe in the middle, a small globe in the middle, and it gives you these wreaths around this part. To me, where is the semblance of this being the evolution of the other Intercontinental titles? The only thing that you have is the same as here. And they kind of broke that apart.
Well, let me ask you a question. Does it make a difference if you find out that it was not meant to be an evolution of something? It seems intentional. You know what I mean? How do you feel about that, knowing that it looks as if, hey, they decided, hey, look, we're not going to keep because now I got to go back. Because now I got a bone to pick with you, brother guy. I think your expectations might be a little bit off. What made you think, as a belt person, that championship was supposed to be an evolution of the Intercontinental Championship? Because what I'm seeing is, think about the drastic changes from IC title to IC title, right? So we talk about the block logo IC title, like you said, that's one version, and then they went completely different from it and just made that little circle oval on a purple strap, which looked absolutely atrocious. But and it didn't resemble anything close to what we knew as the Intercontinental Championship, right? And then, like I said, that kind of evolves into a different version of itself that we all kind of, knew and loved and grew up on. And then they went back to the block logo, and then we go from the block logo to this one. So what makes you think that they're even thinking about this concept or idea of, hey, we're going to evolve this look, rather than saying, hey, look, let's scrap this and start from scratch. Let's go with a completely different design. Now it looks like they have taken inspiration from like the past, like, okay, we're going to mix like the oval championship with the way that it's stretched out, but it's not too much about that particular championship that even resembles anything that shows an evolution was even in the conversation when deciding to bring this new championship. So where did you get that from? Why is that your expectation?
So, and this is why. It's two reasons. One, every Intercontinental title had certain things about it. A banner, a globe in certain places, right? Okay. I can understand the color being gone, right? But you took the banner away. As I look over, everyone had a banner that said Intercontinental Championship, right? It literally had a banner on it, some way, shape, or form. Now, here's my argument. From the Wing Eagle to the Big Eagle to the Undisputed Championship, there are elements from each one that carried over, that continued that legacy. Okay. Even on the spinner, the legacy was broken when we did these network logos, right? Okay. Yep. The legacy was completely broken. Let's call it what it is. There is nothing in those network logos. Maybe the amount of stones, maybe the amount of red stones might be equated to that, but there is nothing in that for this, right?
True.
So you gave us this, but then fast forward, because you kept a main element of this from his previous version.
That's true.
You get what I'm saying? So
and no blue.
And no blue. But even on the side, you did that wonky stuff with just like on the side plates over there.
Bingo.
The little whoosh, and then we got stars embedded here. You have elements from it. And yes, I had Bobby Lashley on one side and Apollo Crews on the other.
That looks like an evolution of a championship, though. Like Correct. In that situation, it's even down to the shape of the main plate.
And that's why I'm saying it was kind of like disappointment. I'm saying this hurt it because when it was debuted, when Shinsuke had it, I was like, why?
Remember when Shinsuke feel about it at first? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, why did we do this? It didn't on TV. It looked boring. It looked sad. It didn't look like. And even when Sammy had it and he had the title, he said he wasn't. He never lost the title. He was walking around with two. Neither one felt important. When Jay changed it to blue, I was like, still not a. Do something. I felt like it was like you're waiting for something else. Like, it just didn't feel the same. And getting the United States title and then this, I feel like, I don't want to say a rush job. Too much stuff. It was too, like the real to say, I don't like change. Sure. It changed so dramatically. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to make the belt spin. It was, nope, we're just going to give you a whole new concept and say, we're going to forget the lineage.
I don't see how you sound very contradicting because you love the oval IC purple. You have that belt in your possession. It's oval, it's purple, it's small, and it has the WWF in the middle of it. I'm trying to figure out why you were okay with that. If what you're saying right now is to be true. Okay, cool. How come you didn't feel that way about that? Because I was outraged, but you don't.
Because it has elements. It has elements of it.
It's not enough.
It's not okay. So you want like me. I want to be able to look at it and see the evolution of a championship. Hence why I like the NXT UK Championship more than the network logos, because I felt like that is, okay, that makes sense for that belt. This is what I thought the network logos would be closer to. And then I became okay with the network logos. Just like when you look at this belt, and a lot of people like when you look at it, this is automatically
on the show tonight. Usually you don't pull this many
I really don't.
All this championship glory out, and this is getting a lot of start time. This is what we want to see.
Yeah, and I got to make a point, right?
Yep.
So think about this belt, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has elements of what NXT belts were looking like. The larger strap, the ribbons around it, everything about it, the detail work in it. You can tell it belongs in that family.
Very modern, classic vibe to it. Reminds me of that early United States Championship that you showed with Harley Race. That was immediately the first thing I thought about when I saw it.
The wider strap, everything about it has. Because remember, NXT was doing some different stuff with their belts,
especially so that's why I was okay. First NXT Championship.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's why I like. That's why I like the NXT Championship so much, because they feel like they're all evolutions of their self. And it's like when you evolve a belt, it should get better. Or you should feel like, yes, that's a cool belt, but I still like that one. Oh, I'm okay with this. Or it should grow on you over time.
I'm trying to feel like where you see elements of that WWF block logo with that oval looking purple strap belt that was 10 times smaller. You know how mad I was when I didn't like Stone Cold for a long time because he threw it over the river, and I was like, "Bro, why did you do that?" And I wasn't even that's when I was just getting back into pro wrestling. I wasn't all the way dialed in. I was still riding the WCW wave, and I'm trying to figure out, bro, what you got going on? What is this? That's not the IC title, and it was small. It looked like I don't even want to talk about it. I'm trying to figure out why you had no problem with that. You talking about it was elements. It was a completely different redesign. Like they weren't even similar in any way, shape, or form. The globe was even stretched out. It was small. It was purple. It's
still the better. It's still the better.
No, that's so the banner was enough. Oh, okay, there.
And the side plates. In the side plate. You didn't like the side plates?
I didn't like anything about it.
You just don't like that belt. You just don't like that belt.
I hate it with a passion until I saw Randy Orton carry. I said, "Oh, that joint is fire now." Later, I remember watching because that's when I was tiptoeing, like that 2003, 2004 era. I was like, wrestling is dumb. I'm not watching this, but I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, though. That's okay. This Randy Orton's cool. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's with Jeff Hardy, Shelton Benjamin. Yeah, who else was it? John Morrison. All of them was fighting for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah, I was all right. Yeah, this is dumb, but I was watching like, wait a minute. No, this and every time I got mad, this is dumb. This is why I'm not watching it. And then after a while, I kept watching it longer and longer. And before you know, I was watching all over again. But that's when I paid attention. Like, the belt got bigger. Like, okay, wait a minute, that's actually not bad. I'm okay with that version.
We like this. It's okay.
Okay. All right. Wait a minute. So who's the nemesis? Okay, Shelton Benjamin. Okay, we got Carlito. Oh, wait, Jericho's back in the mix. So it was moments like that made me recognize, like, okay, cool. We have upgraded versions of the same title, right? Same thing with the Undisputed Championship. They debuted it, and I don't mean to bring it up during this IC versus US conversation, but the first version they debuted, technically the still WWF version. I said, once again, we go from the big eagle to the big gold, and then you shrink the belt down again. And I'm like, and then 1 and 2, I saw Brock Lesnar, and I was like, oh wow, it must have got bigger because it looks massive around Brock Lesnar's waist. And then I remember seeing it hanging on a wall in Paul Heyman's office when he was running SmackDown, and I was like, well, that looks really, really big in that picture. I'm like, that's what I like. I like that version of it. And that's kind of how all, that was the measuring stick as far as big championships. Because I told you I don't like I don't like small championship belts. There's some that I make the exception for, like smaller mid-card titles. I'm like television championships and stuff like that. But when it comes to like world titles, nah, my world titles got to be big enough. It don't got to be super huge, but it's got to be big enough. So, and that's how I felt about the changes with the IC title. But like I said, for you to sit there and be like, oh, it's evolution because it's still got the banners. I'm like, heck no.
Well, let me ask you this then. Could
Yeah.
you tell at first look that was the Intercontinental title?
No, I didn't. There's no way. How would you know? It was circle. It was oval. It was the sandwich. If I looked at it, it made me want to buy a sandwich, a sub. That's what it reminded me of. It was the sandwich sub championship belt, and it was purple. Why the heck was it purple, brother guy? Tell me. You can't. It was purple. It was nothing about that belt that made me go, oh my god. That was the second most prestigious belt. You had the big eagle, big massive championship, and then you shrunk down the IC title. I'm like, come on, bro. Even if they decided it wasn't gonna be a block logo and it was massive the first time, I'm telling you right now, at the time I would have still got mad at it, but I wouldn't have been as mad at it as long as I was if it was bigger and it wasn't stupid and purple.
You just you don't like change.
No, especially the 9-10-year-old realness. No, change. No, stick to what was working. Don't change anything. So
you said stick to what was working.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So realness. This brings me to the time when I'm going to ask you for your final thoughts on either belt.
Oh boy.
Because I clearly see the side of the aisle that you're on.
I just, if it hasn't been obvious the entire show, there's been highs and lows as far as the conversation is concerned. There's things that I'm honest about as far as the look of the United States Championship, even its lineage. I don't want it to ever be interpreted that I am taking anything away from the lineage or legacy of the United States Championship. Not the looks of it, not the different version of it. Absolutely beautiful belt. I even have a classic one gifted to me by you yourself, brother guy, of the NWA United States Championship that was heralded in the 80s. I love it. I really do. But when you talk about the connection that we have as wrestling fans, as in like the history, the highlights we hear, to me, I have a bias towards it because it's like, man, I can count on one hand all these Intercontinental Championship moments, whether they're attached to ladders or not, versus, maybe a few fingers with the United States Championship, and not necessarily the belt itself, but the moments. It's like, man, when I think about the United States Championship, I just remember being on TV a lot. I associate it with Raw. Monday Nitro. I associate it with, you know what I mean? Good TV. It's just like the same thing. I hold it in the same regard almost as the television championship in WCW. The WCW television title has all my Booker T memories attached to it. Booker T versus Benoit, Booker T versus Finlay. I know that, and that one was a heavy one. I hated Finlay. Like, I was so mad. I hated him when he came back to WWF. I had beef with him back from 97 and 98, whenever he was in WCW fighting Booker T, all the way up. So when he shot, I said, bro, why is he here, bro? Like, I was still angry at that man. But that's how I feel about the United States Championship. I love the 3-plate United States Championship because it reminded me of the Intercontinental block logo, WWF block logo. And then when they got rid of that championship, that immediately became my go-to championship. That was my number one. That was my favorite, outside of the world. And, but I was always the mid-card guy in my house. So I needed a championship to represent me. So during that funky period, I stopped associating myself with the IC title. And I called myself in my house the United States champion because I was like Booker T. And that was kind of my whole angle. So when it comes to my final thoughts, it's obvious which side that I'm on. And I stand by my statements. I stand by my arguments. But like I said, both lineages have a strong history. I care more about the look of the United States Championship than I do more its lineage. And I care more about the lineage. No, that's a lot. I care more about the look of the IC title as well. I'm sorry. Because if that new, it took me a while to adjust to the new, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I had to look at it for a little bit. And the way they debuted it was just so lackluster. Sami Zayn's like, hey, you deserve a better belt. Look. And I was like, okay. All right, that could there have been a better way we did this when they wanted to change the original IC title from the block logo to the new ugly oval sandwich championship belt? They had it was involved with an angle, right? Stone Cold and The Rock got into it. Stone Cold, I believe, wasn't even healthy enough to defend it, so he had to give it up. He gets mad. He knocks The Rock over the river, throws the belt over with it. Hey, Rock, you want this? The Rock's in the ring looking like you got my championship belt, and he just throws it into the river. But then, The Rock shows up the following week or whatever it was, and he had a brand new championship because it was a moment in time. Like, okay, cool. Guess what? I can't do anything about it. You want this championship? Fine, you can have it. Phew. I was like, wait a minute, what's going to happen to the belt? Then he comes back with a brand new one, which is extremely ugly and reminded me of a Subway sandwich. But at least it gave me a reason to either like it or not, was because of how they portrayed it. Sammy's like, hey, you're a champion. You deserve more. And I was like, okay, that's lackluster. But eventually I was like, okay, I do like this championship. And of course, we had to look at that United States Championship. And I was like, how do we feel about these? Of course, the debate was which one looks better. And I still, to this day, I gravitate towards the IC title versus the United States Championship because I think the United States is too bulky in the main plate. And there's no blue. Give me blue at the top and just give me white letters. Like, don't be afraid to go there. You did it already. So let's just keep it going. So that's just me. Those are my final thoughts. I love both these championships. I love all these eras. I don't love all of its history, but yes, for the most part, two of my favorite championships of all time. They will always hold its place in my heart and in my history as a pro wrestling fan and as a belt person for so long. So it's, like I said, it's tough to debate, especially with the second half of the United States Championship's lineage is connected to WWE. So it's almost like it's kind of cheating. It's like, they kind of control it versus they having a competitive edge being in a different company. So there you have it. I said everything I needed to say. I vented. I did my part. And I'm glad that everybody joined us. And I hope I have swayed you to my side as well. And yeah, that's it. I think that's pretty much everything. We got quite a few people watching at this point as we wrap up. But it's funny how that works.
So I think you said your piece, and I'm gonna say my piece because, granted, one of my favorite belts is the Oval
First of all,
IC.
I'm sorry, you can't do this right now because you're being biased. You have one championship on one shoulder, and I don't see the other one. I feel like you're the wrong message.
And I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay, go
because ahead. My Oval IC, that's one of my favorite championships.
Leave that where it's at, please.
No, it's in a shadow box that has been signed by Chris Jericho, who at the time signed it as a 7-time champion, even though he was an 8-time champion. And he stated that he can't count the one when him and China were co-champions, so he only called it 7 at the time.
Sounds a little bitter about that.
Yeah, he was. So that belt is sitting in the basement in a shadow box.
Oh, yeah, let it stay there. Leave it there.
So that's one of and that was a belt I received at my birthday. That was actually the first championship I got. But
I feel bad for you. I'm sorry. You deserve better than that.
I love that belt. And even in my time of loving that belt, and it was a thing where the moments, yes, are going to be there because the IC title was always about who's next, who's the future, who's the workhorse. Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. You knew this is the proving ground. So if Rock and Austin were fighting for the Intercontinental title, fast forward, they would be fighting for the world title. If Kurt Angle and Jericho were fighting for the Intercontinental, you would think that, okay, we're going to cut and paste. They'll be fighting for the world title. Yep. That was always the framework for the Intercontinental. Mm-hmm. Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Intercontinental title feud, transfer over. Stone Cold and Bret Hart. The list goes on and on and on. Yes, that's what the Intercontinental title had evolved into. Right. Then we saw another evolution where it was, okay, what do we do with this to keep people relevant, but to have those good matches when we need them and to even showcase those people that could open or close a show or be on the house show circuit or do the rounds. That's what the IC was for. The United States title was a little bit different. And when I say a little bit different, it got its second wave when it came to WWE.
Okay.
WCW, it was I don't want to say a victim. It had some moments, but are those moments remembered because we know what WCW was there for. It was there for the big gold and the cruiserweights. Let's call it what it is.
Well,
when you get a Booker T that made the television title probably the most important title, when he held it, he made sure of it. So that tells you the status of that company. But NWA, from its birth, it was a territory championship that actually got us those legends that we're celebrating, got us those people to actually say, look who I'm inspired to be, who I am today. Right. And those are the match studies. So yes, that belt legacy has evolved across three different companies. But it's always going to be a thing where you can't not have one without the other, because I think they both make each other better. Because had it not been for the Intercontinental title, not for the U.S. title, we may not have gotten the Intercontinental Championship. And had the Intercontinental title not been the secondary title when they said, okay, we're going to do a true brand split, we probably wouldn't have got, if it wasn't a brand split, we probably wouldn't have got the U.S. title back. So they do need each other, because we're going to continue to have these conversations. Which one is the better? Because was Dolph Ziggler better with the U.S. or was he better with the Intercontinental? Was Kofi better with the Intercontinental or was he better with the U.S.? No, but the thing is, they are our wrestlers that we are attached to, and these are the wrestlers that we're saying make up Grand Slam, make up Hall of Famers, make up icons and legends based upon these two championships. With that being said, I don't know if we could say which one is the better mid-card title, because in each instance, we can argue which one has had more impact, more prestige, which one has had better match quality, and which one has the better reigns. We could always argue that. But I can say one thing we can't argue. Wrestling needed both of these belts, and I'm glad they both still around. Uh-oh. Did I lose Realness? I think he's frozen. Uh-oh. I think Realness is frozen. And on that notion, I'm going to say this. We appreciate you. I know this week was a little different. We had the Wrestling Rumble on Tuesday. Championship Culture was Wednesday. But next week, Championship Culture will be back to its regular time slot on Tuesday at 8 p.m. And on Wednesday, we'll be back with the Wrestling Rumble Now podcast at 10 o'clock, where all four of the hosts will be there. We'll be joined by the founder of Hollywood, Brian H. Waters, the Realness Dwayne Allen, as Matt III, or as you know him as Brother Hugh. We will return next week. And make sure you comment your thoughts. Let's make sure you comment your thoughts and about this show and other. Go back to the playlist of Championship Culture. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a chance when we go live. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms. And tune in to every Tuesday at 8 p.m. for Championship Culture and Wednesday at 10:30 p.m. for the flagship show of Wrestling Rumble Now podcast. Until next time, keep your eyes on the gold, and remember, every belt has a story. I was trying to stall to see if Realness could come back. I don't think he's coming back. All right. On that notion, and he's back. I didn't know if he wanted to do his social media plug. Yep, we're going to wait because I know he wanted to go and try to make a record, but don't look like he's going to be able to do it. I think he's having technical difficulties. Well, until next time, join us next week. And remember, every belt has a story, and I can't wait to hear yours.
Now hit my music, the good one.